I want to thank you all for coming to the season end sustainability lecture and sustainability event for the Sustainable Business Council. The Sustainable Business Council has been in operation for about 6 years. This is going to be our 4th year of offering Sustainable Business Awards, and we have a number of them to go through tonight, so I kind of wanted to jump into that. Before I did, I wanted to, anybody who hadn't noticed, there is food and beverage back here in the corner, and those were donated to us by Bigga Pizza, Posh Chocolate, and Big Sky Brewing. So we want to thank all of them. The lovely facility we're in here tonight is the Stensrud building, and that has also been donated for our use tonight. And MCAT graciously comes over and films all of our lectures, so you can see them later on MCAT if you haven't. If you don't get all the details tonight, you can go back and take notes again later, because it's real important stuff we're going to talk about tonight. So this year, for our Sustainable Business of the Year, we had several nominations, but the entity we chose, and I guess I should start off with, when we look through the nominations and we try and decide who to give these awards to, we're looking typically for entities or individuals that are concerned in all 3 legs of sustainability. And the 3 legs are in various different forms, but profit, people, and planet. You can also say environment, economics, and equity. But what we're talking about is that it's an entity or a person who's focused on making a profit, being successful in business. I shouldn't say just making a profit, but being successful in business, as well as taking care of the environment and the community that they work in, live in. And so when we looked at for our candidates, or looked through the candidates for these awards, we were looking for people who were involved in all 3 of those and put forward strong efforts and have continuous plans to work on improving their performance in those 3 areas. Our Sustainable Business of the Year this year is Big Sky Brewing, and I have Trinda Heaton here, who is their marketing director, to accept that award. Real quickly, we are starting an assessment process to help businesses become more sustainable. And Big Sky volunteered to be one of our guinea pigs this year, where we did some test runs with the assessment process. So we got to get in there and see all of the cool stuff that they're doing. Big Sky Brewing during the year donates to over 100 entities, including Garden City Harvest, Mud, who's going to be mentioned later today, United Way, and the Missoula Avalanche Organization. They've also provided significant funding for things like the skate park and Brennan's Wave. They have some really cool things that I didn't know about until our students and one of our board members went out to do this assessment. They actually have a heat exchange system out there that takes the heat from one batch of brew and uses it to preheat the next batch of brew. So they have a pretty cool process out there. They also do a tremendous amount of recycling, including recycling or reuse of spent grain, which they give to some livestock producers, and also their cardboard packaging. They try and use local product whenever they can. One of their biggest uses happens to be Bitterroot Valley honey that they use in their summer honey ale, which is their second best-selling brand. So, in recognition of their continuing and ongoing work in the sustainability area, we are giving them the Sustainable Business of the Year for 2008. Would you like to? Do you want this guy?
No. Can everyone hear me okay? Oh, I have to go. I'm behind the post. They have to see me.
Okay.
My name is Trinda Heaton. I work with Big Sky Brewing Company. I recognize some faces out here. And it's been really exciting work. It was really great working with Lisa. Approached us, God, a couple months ago, not with Facebook pizza, but approached us a few months ago about having the students come out, and it was a lot of fun, and it actually came at a really great moment for us because we are, as everyone is feeling the pinch right now with gas prices and all of that, and as the world becomes a little greener and a little more socially aware of that, it's become great for us because we are starting to seek some alternative energy for running our brewery, which, you know, I mean, we're getting pretty big. We're in 19 states, and so it's good. We're really excited, and they gave us some great ideas, and we're hoping for some more. So thank you, everybody, and hope you have a good night.
The second award we award every year is the Sustainable Nonprofit of the Year. When we first did this, we ended up having a whole bunch of nonprofits that were nominated for our Sustainable Business category, and we said, okay, fine, we're going to just do another category. This was actually the largest category that we had this year of nominees, and I can't remember the exact number, but it took us quite a lot to weed through them all because there were a lot of good nominees. We chose the Missoula Urban Demonstration Project to receive the award. And tonight we have Tim Skufka and Daniel Adams. And are you both board members? Is that? Yes. Yeah. So they're board members for MUD here to accept the award tonight. And MUD has been in the area since 1981. I don't know if you folks know that. It was the Down Home project when they first started. In addition to the demonstration project that they have over there, and one of the reasons we decided this year was a really good year to recognize them. Over at the project, if you haven't been over there, they use solar power, and they have an organic garden, and they do education classes for people in sustainable living. Last year actually, they started their first Earth Day event, and this year, despite the cold, they still had a great event going on down there, which is an event where all of the sustainability organizations in Missoula get to come out and showcase what they're doing and showcase what sustainable living really is. This year they had some electric cars over, and they had a biodiesel generator for people to see. There were a wide variety of things, and we felt like when we were talking about who's bringing sustainability into the area and who's doing a lot for sustainability, MUD came up as one of the key nonprofits in the area doing that. And so we'd like to award them our Sustainable Nonprofit of the Year for 2008. Thank you. Did either of you want to say a little bit?
Thanks for the recognition. It's hard to really see what we really do all year round by just an Earth Day, but Earth Day Festival would. Some of the two significant parts or items that we accomplished this year is we developed or instigated a truck share program. It's integrated into our tool library. So not everybody needs to buy a truck. We have one at MUD for you, everybody's use. Another important element that we've installed at the MUD site was a gray water system. Which is, I don't want to go through the importance of that right here, but it's significant, and it's an element that more and more homes should integrate into their systems. We're doing a lot of reorganizing. If SBC thought we did great this year, look out for next year.
Our third category of awards is the Sustainable New Venture of the Year. And we had a couple different, well, we had 3 or 4 different nominees in this category. What we're looking for here is usually entities that are less than 2 years old and appear to be working very hard on sustainability issues. We also will consider if an entity that's been in existence for a while takes on a new product line or a new venture, new activity to them. And we actually, as we were looking at the nominees in this category, 2 entities came up to the top, and they're not done with their projects yet, but we're really excited about both of those. We have 2 entities here in Missoula that are currently under construction with LEED buildings. They hope to become LEED certified when they're done. That's a huge, long process of paperwork and all of those things. So my builders on my board said I couldn't say they were LEED certified buildings, but they're hoping to be LEED certified buildings. And they're basically what they are is buildings that are designed with sustainability in mind. And they're designed on the front end to be energy efficient and water efficient and be better for workers to work in, to be healthy buildings, clean buildings. And the landscaping has to be just right. They go through this checklist that includes everything you can think of in the sustainability realm as far as how green this building is. And we thought about waiting until the buildings were done to see, okay, did they make it all the way? And decided that it was important maybe to recognize the efforts that they're making, even though they aren't certified yet. And as I was talking with various people, or my minions were talking with various people, about what the projects were doing, they have already made some very significant contributions in both cases. The first is, well, first, I don't know how you say first, or the first one I'm going to talk about, sorry. The Missoula Federal Credit Union is building a lead building over on Russell, right? Is it on Russell? Okay, it's on Russell. And for their new headquarters building. As part of that building, they decided that they would collect glass, which we can't recycle here otherwise, that they would collect glass and crush it and use it in their floors. And they have already taken several tons of glass out of the landfill here in Missoula just doing their floors. So even if they don't do anything else, this building has already made a huge contribution. The second building is First Interstate's building. First Interstate, as you saw, has taken down their old building downtown, and they're in the process of putting in some foundations and et cetera right now. Their big initial accomplishment in my mind is that 97% of the materials from the building that they tore down were recycled. So we've made some huge efforts here. Both of these buildings are designed in such a way that they will be energy efficient and will save the companies a tremendous amount in energy costs in the future. It's one of the reasons we should start looking at green building more, is because a green building typically uses a fraction of the energy that other buildings do. And I've got other details about both buildings, but I won't go into them in a lot of detail. Today I have Joni Walker here from Missoula Federal Credit Union to accept her award, and Mike Hickey here from First Interstate. And I'll let you each come up. And if each of you want to say a couple words, maybe you guys know more about the buildings than I do.
Well, thank you very much. This is a huge honor. If you brought us glass to one of our 2 glass drives, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I encourage you to stop by the branch on Russell Street once it's completed this fall and check out where your wine bottles and beer bottles ended up. Our floor has been poured, and you'll see green and clear and brown, and it's absolutely stunning. And we can't thank the Missoula community enough for turning out for our glass drives and helping us out. So thank you.
Can't you do the walls?
Well, thank you. This is just a real pleasant surprise. We are about 3 years into this project, and as a longtime Missoulian myself, it's turned out to be just something that I'm pleased to be associated with. I don't know how many of you may know, but First Interstate Bank is a Montana-based company. We just operate in Montana and Wyoming, and have just recently bought some banks in South Dakota. But all of our shareholders are either family members, Scott family members, or employees. And the idea of being a green building, frankly, really wasn't much of a decision because it's our home here, and we want, I think the average tenure of my employee here in Missoula is about 20 years with our organization, and as a result, we just want to do the right things in our community, and I particularly appreciate the mission, the 3 values that were mentioned. Besides being a green building for obvious reasons, it also has to be an economically viable investment. And that's what's fallen on my shoulders. And it's and then it's also an urban renewal project. And I'm just excited to be associated with it and hope we can leverage it into more of this kind of activity across the community. So thank you so much.
Okay, our next award is the Sustainability Advocate of the Year. For the past several years, I've known this wonderful woman here in this community who is involved in almost everything. When I go through the list, it's amazing. Lizzie Judah is our award winner this year, has a deep commitment to community building. And that drives her to be involved in a wide variety of things here in the Missoula area. And she's really committed to creating a more sustainable future here in Missoula. She noted, we did a little interview to put this together, and she noted in that interview that she thinks everybody's making choices in their lives. And she encourages you and everybody else to try and make the sustainable choices, because that's what she's done. Things that she does include simply just riding her bike and being a presence out there, reusing and recycling. But she also volunteers with a number of organizations. She was the founder for the Wild Ground Creative and Healing Arts Center. She has volunteered for the Missoula Food Bank for a number of years. She's been helping with the North Missoula Community Development Corporation projects, including the Missoula Community Co-op. And market there. And currently the thing that she's really excited about is Turning the Wheel Productions, which is an intergenerational dance group that operates in 7 cities around the country, including Missoula. And their mission is to make dance accessible to people of all ages. And she's got a performance coming up fairly soon. Is that right, Lizzie? In October. Again, the idea is to bring people of all different ages together to create community. And I know she's done some work with a group of homeowners in her area to try and make even her own little block more sustainable. So there's a lot of exciting things that are going on all around Lizzie, and we wanted to let the rest of the community know how much we appreciate all that she does in the community. So Lizzie, if you'd come on up. You're excited so much. One of the things about Lizzie is she's one of those people that you see at a whole bunch of different volunteer places kind of in the background. And we wanted to make certain that all of you knew who she was. All right, our final award, we decided again to split this year because we had a number of people that we wanted to recognize. We give an SBC Volunteer of the Year Award. Those are folks who are giving a lot of hours and time to us. The 2 people involved this year, Kaya Peterson and Kevin Dorr, have helped 2 of our committees a lot. Kaya is on our education committee and helped us put together our first fee-for-service series of sustainability lectures. She's also the author of 3 of the fact sheets that you'll see over on the table over there, and has been active helping us get the assessment process going. So she's been very active and is always there when we need her to do stuff. Kevin Dorr has been sitting on our Buy Local committee. We have a Buy Local campaign that will be kicking off in August at the River City Roots Festival. Those of you who are businesses who want to know more about it, look for somebody with a name tag later, and they can tell you about the Buy Local campaign that'll be happening this fall. Kevin has drafted a fair amount of text for us to use in the promotional materials for the Buy Local campaign. He also did a great lecture for us last November discussing the psychology around values and how you can reach people based on their value systems, not on the traditional demographics that we usually parse people in when we're trying to figure out how to discuss sustainability with them. But focusing on their values. And basically what he said in that lecture was that we can actually reach every group, even those people who don't typically think of themselves as environmentally or socially conscious, if we use the right messages. And that they all have a connection with the earth and with the community. We just need to make certain we're using the right words, and Kevin's been helping us do that. So hopefully when those messages come out, we'll have it all down and everybody in the community will rush to buy local and be sustainable. So can I have Kevin and Kaya come up? I know Kaya's here.
Picture, please.
Do you guys want to say something too? I didn't want to make a comment.
Sure, thanks. If you're not already involved in SBC, I encourage you to do so. I just got here in September and was really excited to know that this group was here and be able to dive right in. It's a great group, and there are a lot more businesses out there that could use our support.
One of the things I've been doing in the last year, as Sue mentions, I've been traveling around the state and delivering a presentation to different nonprofit groups on how to promote sustainability. And at one point in this process, I was talking with a friend of mine of 30 years who's out there somewhere named Stuart Hall. And he asked me, he goes, "What are you presenting on?" I told him, I'm leading each presentation with this idea that we're all kind of infected by this parasitic brain worm that causes us to think and act in particular ways. And he laughed for about 20 minutes. Really, for the first time, I kind of stepped back and thought, should I be saying that? You know, in most places in the country, they send you to a mental institution for saying those kinds of things, but in Missoula, you get an award for it.
Okay, that's our awards. Our speaker is back with hopefully her presentation, so we'll load it on and we'll get going. Yeah.
I think we all should show a hand to Susan.
Thank you all. I have a number of board members here and I make them work very hard, so thank them also as you see them. Tonight we have with us Susan Eastep. She is actively involved here in the Missoula community in socially responsible investing. She has worked in the past. She's been in the securities industry for over 25 years. She began her career working on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in 1981. She joined J.P. Morgan after that as a vice president, and she returned to Montana to work at H. Edwards, and worked for a couple other firms since then. I've known her since I came back to town about 10 years ago. And she currently is a personal investment advisory portfolio manager. Get all that out, you're good. Susie's going to talk tonight about socially responsible investing, some of the new trends, and why you should all be doing it. So I'll turn it over to Susie.
Thanks, you guys. Let me know where I am in relation to this microphone and whether you're hearing me all right or whether it's annoying that I'm too close. So somebody just wave at me if there's a problem. So I did have a splendid PowerPoint presentation that I've actually given a number of times in recent weeks around the country. And I'm going to give you the same presentation but without the pictures. And I think actually it's a funny thing because Lisa pointed out to me when I came back without my flash drive, she said, you know, for many years we stood up in front of people and talked without the use of a little pointer to distract them from our faces. So I'm going to go back to those days and we'll just pretend that it's 1992 or something, whatever it was before we had our machines. So socially responsible investing has a lot of meanings to a lot of different people. There's some big broad topics that I'll cover tonight, and I want to pique your curiosity. I want you to get interested, and I want you to get enthusiastic. What I do have for everybody, and I don't know that there are enough copies, but I certainly can arrange for there to be more, is a list of resources, which are websites where I've drawn my information from, where you can go and find out about the various things that we talk about tonight. And there is a vast set of resources and information out there on the internet, of course. But what we've tried to do is direct you with this list of websites to possibly narrow the universe a little bit, to find the areas of your interest, and it is organized by basic socially responsible investing, by mission-related investing, and by corporate responsibility and who's doing work in that area. So that's on the table over there. It's pretty blue, because so is my PowerPoint. So the thing that most of us are used to thinking about when we think about socially responsible investing is investing in the traditional securities in the capital markets. So the capital markets are the stock market, the bond market, cash, money markets, et cetera, et cetera. And originally, socially responsible investing was a process by which divestiture of certain companies where you did not feel good about what they were doing was a form of protest. It didn't have an enormous impact on the companies that you divested from, but you as the investor could feel that A, you were making a protest against that kind of behavior, and B, that you were not gaining financially from someone's ill-gotten gains, bad deeds, pillaging of the earth, whatever it was. So what a lot of people think of as socially responsible investing in the traditional capital markets has to do with screening. And there are actually two kinds of screening, and I'll give you some examples of those. There are, however, some other broad categories that are becoming more interesting to both individuals and organizations. And they fall under the category of mission-related or program-related investing. And that's mostly, it's primarily applicable to organizations rather than individuals. And program and mission-related investing is where you have a specific mission, and an easy example would be SBC. So let's assume that as the years go by, you develop a much larger network, you develop some assets, you have an investment portfolio, possibly an endowment that helps fund your operations, et cetera, and you decide that you want to maintain the mission of that portfolio to match what you are trying to do. So you would invest in companies that are sustainable, number one, that are promoting sustainability. You would invest in companies that may be also entrepreneurial. There are a whole gambit of where you, as an organization, can define your mission and then basically put your money where your mouth is. One of the interesting things, and this applies not to individual 501c3s as much unless they have a foundation piece, is that the sister to that, which is program-related investing, says that you can take some of your investments, you can align them with your mission or the goals of your foundation, and you can use that investment as part of your required 5% philanthropic distribution every year. And so any of you who are involved with foundations know that, public foundations, that you must distribute at least 5% a year. So if you make a program-related investment, you actually are putting that money out there, you're applying it to your 5% rule, but in truth, you're making an investment that may at some point have, hopefully, single, but I mean, it will certainly have, we expect to have single returns, but possibly double and triple bottom line returns. So mission-based and program-related investing is getting to be very interesting. The other thing that I want to talk to you guys about tonight, and again, I'm just kind of giving you the broad topics and we'll delve in a little bit, is community investing. And community investing is the fastest growing of all of the sectors of socially responsible investing. And that's where you take your dollars and you invest them so that they are directed back to your community or a community to be used as a loan pool for small business, to be invested in any enterprise that your accredited or certified financial community development financial institution, CDFI, is tasked with doing. And there are a number of ways that we can actually do that here in Missoula. And if you don't want to necessarily direct your monies to Missoula, I can also give you some resources on how to direct your monies to community investing, which is actually global. So it doesn't have to be your community, but it goes directly to the communities without going through all the capital markets and the intermediaries. That's okay. The last thing that we'll talk about today, and this is by far the most exciting area of socially responsible investing, and I think it is probably the area that would be of most interest to you all besides what you may or may not do with your own investment portfolios, is what we call direct investing. It has a lot of terms that you will hear around it. It's angel investing, it's venture capital, but it's putting it in a wrapper of investing in new or startup companies where you believe that they are going to be sustainable, they're environmentally positive, they are in some way furthering something that you personally believe in. And by investing in that company, you're taking a proactive stance. And the investments range from $25,000 up to tens of millions. But there are also vehicles for doing direct investing, and those exist here in Missoula as well as nationally, and there are organizations that we can put you in touch with, again, that you can look at the websites. So socially responsible investing has those three big basic components. Traditional securities, and those again are stocks and bonds, and we do the screening on the stocks or the bonds, and we can be exclusionary or inclusionary. Exclusionary says, I don't want to own Schlumberger, or I don't want to own PetroChina, because currently they are both in the Sudan. They are reaping profits in the Sudan, and the money that is actually being paid to the Sudan in royalties is going to a dictatorship that has been accused of genocide. So I don't want to own those companies, and I want to make a stand about not owning them. The second piece is inclusionary, and that's where we're saying I do want to own Green Mountain Coffee. And I want to own them because they're fair trade. I want them because they pay living wage. I want to own them because this is a direction that I would like to see more companies go. So you're supporting, and that's the inclusionary piece, which is getting to be a lot more popular, and I think it's a lot more effective. Lastly, when you do traditional SRI investing, you have some ability, depending on which vehicle you use, to use shareholder activism or advocacy to help change the course of the company. Every shareholder in a company who owns $2,000 or more of stock and has owned it for some period of time, which is currently escaping me, but it's a year or something like that, has the right to put onto the ballot that is included with the proxy, that is included with the quarterly statement, some issue that they wish to have the shareholders of that company vote on. Now that sounds really simple. I have $2,000 worth of Schlumberger stock I want to put on their proxy that I want them to withdraw from the Sudan. Well, it isn't quite that easy because, of course, they have banks of lawyers who there's a process involved, and that process isn't particularly simple, although there are many people who have the process down pat. And so Schlumberger lawyers, and I sort of beat up on Schlumberger, but it's really easy to beat up on them right now because they are not good citizens. And if anybody here is an executive Schlumberger, then I guess you have to take me out and shoot me. But their corporate lawyers are not going to want this on their proxy, so they are going to pick apart your application to put it on the ballot. And as I said, it's not an easy process. However, the good news is that there are people out there doing it collectively. So there are a number of socially responsible investment management teams that, in addition to managing portfolios, they use the fee structure that they get for managing those portfolios, and they have created an advocacy group, which then takes the shares of the stocks and companies that their shareholders own, and they go through the process of putting initiatives on ballots. And you will see, if any of you own common stock and get your envelope 4 times a year and you pull out your ballot, and the first thing they want you to do is vote for the directors. The second thing will usually be something about hiring some accounting firm or other. And then there may be 2 others, and you'll see that they will say to you, please vote in favor of the directors, and please vote in favor of initiative 1, and vote against 2 and 3. And 2 and 3 may be exactly what I just said, which is, if you're Schlumberger, we want you to get out of the Sudan. So there are folks who are actually making that happen. What that's kind of morphed into, which is even better, is that the companies don't like it. So when you think you want to put a shareholder initiative on the ballot and you're part of an organization that is good at this, you ding them up and say, Mr. Investor Relations guy, I'd like to talk with your board of directors because we're preparing to file a shareholder initiative. And that shareholder initiative will be about your divestiture of your properties in the Sudan. And we have begun the process, and we are so-and-so. And they will say, oh, okay, let me get back to you. And you have a strong chance, not you personally, but the folks who've been working through this process for many, many years, of actually reaching the corporate boardroom. They don't want that on their ballot. It is possible, and it has happened many times, where they will actually talk to you. And so the folks who are doing the advocacy can get in front of the board of directors. They can say, gee, you know, we're going to put this on your ballot, and every one of your shareholders is going to see it. However, if you can show us in the next X number of months that there's some progress being made, that you have begun to consider the human rights violations in the Sudan, if you have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a compromise process. It's partially a blackmail process, and it's partly a compromise process. But you know what? It works.
Can you give us examples of success?
A success. There's a company called Yum Brands, which most of you don't know. They were part of the Pepsi company, and they do the fast food piece, which is Taco Bell. Right. I wasn't, I want to say Taco John's or whatever, but Taco Bell. So 3 years ago, it came to light that Taco Bell was buying an awful lot of tomatoes from a consortium in Southern California that was using immigrant labor and was paying subpar wages, had just horrendous conditions under which these workers worked. And then this tomato seller was selling massive amounts of tomatoes to Yum. So one of the companies that I'm very familiar with, and actually I put some of their material back there too, Trillium Asset Management, began a shareholder advocacy campaign using shares of Yum Brands, and went to Yum and said, wait a minute, you are buying tomatoes from this producer who has appalling workplace conditions for his workers, and we want to put that out to your shareholders to see if they approve of that. And of course, Yum didn't want that to happen. It did not go to shareholder initiative. What it did do, though, was it created a situation where Yum quit buying from that producer, causing him grievous economic difficulty. And what became of him, I'm not certain, but I suspect that some progress was made, and Yum actually took a stand, unlike some folks locally who refuse to be proactive and want to be reactive. They said, we're not going to support those kind of labor practices. So,
Were you alluding to some university administrators?
Not on TV. I would never do that. So that was a success story, and there's a bunch of them. Actually, the piece that I left over there that Trillium put out lists about 20 success stories. So it is a really positive movement with its advocacy and activism role. Now, what can you do as far as that goes? The way that those advocacy people are paid is by the management of the money that you have in with those managers, and that can be with Calvert funds. It can be with the Domini social index funds. Each one of those managers works together on the advocacy side to create the social change, and by having your money with those managers and paying their internal expense ratios or their commissions or their fees, you are enabling them to do this other work. So you are involved if you have money invested with the various kinds of socially responsible or ethical mutual funds, private managers, et cetera. So, any questions on advocacy and activism? And I tend to go on and on. So, as I'm starting to get to the point where I'm not supposed to talk anymore, Sue, you'll stop me, right? Thanks. So, back to because now I'm talking without my PowerPoint. Basic premises: socially responsible investing is an investment strategy which seeks to simultaneously maximize financial return and achieve social good. Now, there's also a huge argument out there that says, and you will hear this a lot of times from folks in my industry, that if you want to pursue a socially responsible investment strategy with your portfolio, that you will need to accept subpar returns. Subpar returns generally refers to underperforming our benchmark indexes, which could be the S&P 500 or the Russell 4000, or you name it, that we've got enough indexes to compare things to make you blue in the face. However, I am going to hold up a chart here, which you probably can't all see very well, but this is from April of 1990 through April of 2007. The red line, which is above the blue line, is the Domini Social Index. The blue line is the S&P 500. So, you know, I don't have to say much else. The truth is that you do not have to give up performance in exchange for making the choice to take an ethical overlay to your investments. So moving right along, similar approaches are used in the other kinds of mission-related and program-related investing, as I said. The other thing that you need to consider when you look at returns, because again, there's the indexes, and we seem to be index-obsessed in this country, is that what does it mean if I outperform the S&P 500? Well, it means that I made a little more money than what those 500 stocks made. But think about return for a second a little bit differently. Think about, maybe I made a little less money than the S&P 500, but maybe I made it possible to walk 2 blocks from my house and buy bread at an artisan bread maker that our local CDFI supported. Now, I just created a double bottom line because I got a fair return, but I also got to buy artisan bread that I might not have been able to buy if my local CDFI had not had capital available for that bread store to go into business. And then what if it also is an active environmental participant who is in some way also creating environmental sustainability? Then you've got a triple bottom line. So, okay, so maybe I got 9% instead of 10%, but I got to buy the bread, and I know that they're out there actively creating workplace equity, equality. They are recycling. They are not using chemicals and ugly things and putting them into our rivers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I want people to really do, and I've been talking to folks about this for a long time, is to rethink what you think about return. It isn't just money. And I think everybody in this room would agree that although money is nice, you don't need to make the pile taller than your head. Sometimes it's just nice to be able to shop at a locally owned, sustainable business that has been helped to be funded by your dollars, and you know that that is what has created community and has made your place to live a lot happier. So, I guess I do great without my PowerPoint. So history. Socially responsible investing. Guess who started it? Well, don't guess. I'll tell you. The Quakers. 1758. The Quakers prohibit members from engaging in the slave trade. 1758. Next in my little historical chart is the Methodist Church. The founder of the Methodist Church, John Wesley's sermon, The Use of Money, outlined the basics of social investing, and many of them are still used today. I think when it really came to be part of some of our culture was during the Vietnam War. And I think I've got a pretty good group here that may remember the Vietnam War. And a group that's too young, but Dow Chemical was manufacturing a substance called napalm. And there was a picture on the front of Life magazine of a small Vietnamese girl running away, and the napalm had burned all of her clothing off. And as a result of the public impact of that, Dow Chemical was one of the first divestiture companies that the social movement made a cry out for people to sell their stock. And they did. And whether it had an effect or not, it was the beginning of a movement that then moved into the years of apartheid in South Africa, which I'm sure everyone here remembers the divestiture cries for South Africa. There are varying reports of how effective that was with the companies, but it started to have the shareholders' voices heard. We've moved into a much more sophisticated place, as I said, with shareholder activism and advocacy now. And it used to be that when things did make the ballot, when there would be an initiative on a ballot, the shareholders, who are generally pretty lackadaisical about voting unless they're the big institutional shareholders, you might get a 3% yes vote. These days, we're seeing big issues getting 30%. Now, those ballot votes have no teeth. They do not force the company to do, even if they have a majority, to do what that initiative calls for. But the company is embarrassed. The company realizes that their owners care about these issues. And in the end, the company directors are responsible to the shareholders, even though they don't usually act like it. So when you get to vote those little ballot boxes, it comes along with the whole accountability issue that a shareholder initiative can be a very effective tool and has been, in again, much larger votes to the positive. So socially responsible investing in 1995 was $639 billion. To 1995, so 13 years ago, well, 12 years on my chart. In 2007, it was $2.7 trillion. So we've had an enormous increase in that 12-year period, exponential increase. And I think everybody in this room understands completely why that is, because we realize that we are pillaging our planet and that we may at some point, if we don't start standing up and saying something, not have a place for our grandchildren to live that is clean and has a community and is a wonderful place. So the biggest piece of those of the social responsible movement is, as I said, the biggest growth piece has been community investing. And I like to hear that. So I promised to tell you how you can community invest in Missoula. There are a couple of ways. Community investing locally, we have our own CDFI, and I am blatantly making a pitch for them. It's called Missoula Community Development Corporation, or MCDC. I'm sorry? Montana, did I say Missoula? I'm sorry, Montana Community Development Corp. I do it all the time. I started to say Montana and then I changed it to Missoula. Montana Community Development Corporation, they have loan funds, they do grants, they do an awful lot of work. They have been, and you may start to see their stickers around town, they have been instrumental in a lot of small businesses getting their start and then getting their second round of capital in this town. So you can invest with MCDC. You can even take some of your IRA funds, they've figured out how to do that, and have them custodianed and have those funds directed through MCDC to be invested in local businesses. So I encourage you, if you want to just go directly in Missoula to having your money invested in local businesses without going to the businesses themselves, to look at a company, a CDFI like MCDC. On the national level, if that's a little rich for your blood and you're a little scared that you don't know how that will work out in terms of return and you really do need those funds, those IRA funds to retire, Shore Bank, out of Chicago to issue CDs, as do many large social banks, social venture banks. Calvert Foundation backs a series of CDs that you can buy through the Calvert funds. And those CDs are FDIC insured. And then they take that money and put it back out throughout the country into communities in the form of loans, grants, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sorry, in the term of loans, not grants if they're backed by the CDs. So Calvert, MCDC, those are kind of the ways to get money moving within the community investing piece.
Susie, do you know what the return was for the local MCDC group?
It's not very much. It's a couple percent, maybe. And now with the Fed funds rate at 2%, I think what happens is that they talk with you about what your expectation is. And when I heard a presentation from them, a bit ago, when money market rates were about 4.5, they were at about 3.5 or 3. Again, with the Fed funds rate being at 2% right now, I think you could reasonably expect to get 1% or no percent. But again, what's return? Is it about, again, if the money? in which case, great, that's not where you should be putting your money. You should be putting your money in more traditional investments if you're looking for a double-digit return. But if it's also about creating that other bottom line or those other bottom lines, then it's a great vehicle for it. And no one would advocate that you take your entire portfolio and put it into community investing. What I see generally is 5%, sometimes as much as 10. But again, it's just a piece of your big picture. So 1 out of every $9 in the US is managed in a socially responsible way. 1 out of every 9. That's a lot of dollars. And again, that goes back to the statistics I was talking about before. If you want choice, and again, what happens when you go out there and put your money with a socially responsible manager in the form of a mutual fund, there are 260 of them, by the way, is that they then are able to do the advocacy piece. So yes, they screen inclusionary, exclusionary, but you are also supporting their advocacy piece, which again, I can't tell you how important that is. The assets, as I said, they increased from 12 billion in 1995 to 170, no, I'm sorry, to whatever that trillion number was that I just gave you. That's not right. And then there's a thing called socially screened individual accounts. So if you have the ability to influence, say, a pool of money that's part of a foundation endowment, or that your organization has a larger pool of money and you want to utilize those kinds of socially responsible investing techniques, you can, and a lot of these managers have minimums, you can hire someone to manage it for you individually. And if you do that, you are allowed to actually imprint your own beliefs on your portfolio, because you will be interviewed by your manager, who will say to you, okay, so tell me what your hot buttons are. Is it the environment? Is it workplace issues? Is it gender equality? What is it? I use an example all the time of animal testing, because a lot of folks may have, a personal distaste for animal testing. Well, let's drill down a little bit further. Is all animal testing out of the question, or is animal testing as the experimentation on drugs acceptable and cosmetics are not? So, you can run the gambit when you have an individual manager to really tailor-make your portfolio to what you want. The more exclusionary you are, the more difficult it is for them to return market returns. So again, if you have a list of, I can't have drugs, I can't have oil, I can't have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then it gets a little bit more difficult to be certain that your return will be equivalent. But as I said, private, separately managed accounts, which are usually available with somewhat larger minimums, there are a lot of terrific managers out there. There are resources for that on the website list that I gave you as well. Okay, so we talked about mission-related investing. We talked about community investing. Oh, well, here, let me give you some definitions on community investing. It's capital from investors and lenders that is directed to communities that are underserved by traditional financial services. And that, again, I should have pointed that out, and it's a good thing I looked. Because, again, the banks are here, and they are here to serve the bankable customer. But if you're a startup and you need $30,000, and maybe you don't have the world's most perfect credit record, or maybe you don't have a lot of collateral, or maybe in some way you're just not able to go to our local banks and get those funds. The beginning, or the source for those funds can be those community investment funds. They like nothing better than after you have borrowed money from them and paid it back, that you've established credit, and then you can go to the local banks and borrow it, because they've moved you up through the system, just like a first-time home buyer who buys their first home, develops some equity, and then can move on to buy another home. So they can provide access to credit, to equity, basic banking products, all kinds of things. And again, the big example out there, of course, is Shore Bank out of Chicago. And there's a website for them. And I actually had the privilege of meeting Mary Houghton, who was one of the founders of Shore Bank. This is an absolutely wonderful woman who spoke at a conference that I was at in New Orleans. And the best thing that she said was that she was going to solve the subprime crisis one mortgage at a time. She said, I've been in this business so long that I know that I can't, eat the elephant. She said, on the other hand, I got an awful lot of constituents around my bank that could have taken out conventional mortgages, that were bankable, that bought an esoteric, inappropriate, whatever you want to call it, mortgage, and then got in trouble with it when the interest rate reset and their payments went up. She said, we have a database and we're calling them. one by one and saying, come in and see us, and let's see if we can refinance you in a traditional method. And it was funny because I thought about it afterwards, and I thought, what a great way to go about, because that's how that bank started, is on the ground, saying, okay, you, let's talk about it, let's see what products you need, let me see how I can bring them to you. And they started that in a neighborhood where no one else would go. So, you know, an interesting way to try to solve the subprime crisis is to refinance the mortgages one at a time. And I would encourage all lenders to look at it that way. I think we've got a few in this room. The other thing that we can also see from community investing, which I think is really important and that I haven't touched on, is providing affordable housing. We have a housing crisis as much, and Betsy's going, yes, yes. And, you know, we have a housing crisis that has nationally become overwhelming. In Missoula, it has been overwhelming. We have a fabulous, I mean, folks haven't seen their real estate values fall as dramatically, but the same folks that couldn't afford a house 5 years ago still can't afford it. So we are able to build projects very much like what Homeward does, and there are ways to make investments both from, you know, in terms of straight out giving, but also in the forms of real available, making capital available to them. And Betsy's here, and she'll talk to you about it if that's something you're interested in, if affordable housing is what gets you going. Okay, lastly, direct investing, which as small business people, you guys are probably interested in. And direct investing is a form of socially responsible investing where investors invest in private companies and startups. They aren't publicly traded. You want to find that next Burt's Bees, which is, for those of you who don't know, Burt's Bees, which has been around for eons, and I can remember seeing in stores for a long time, did sell out last year for $1 gazillion. And the folks who had supported Burt's Bees and nurtured it through all of those years of being the good guys in that industry are now gazillionaires. So there is two sides to the venture capital piece. One is that you may actually, I think it's, again, Don can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think it's 7 out of 10 fail, and 3 out of 10 actually will make you some money. But in the meantime, you get to play the what if game. What if I am the one who supports the company that actually develops the alternative to petrochemicals? What if I am the person who is part of the process that creates the sustainable ag business that becomes the model for the great northwestern part of the United States, which takes the business away from the monocrop farmers and creates a sustainable system like we've all been talking about but haven't gotten to yet. So, and again, you know, that gives you the ability to be hands-on with your capital. The problem with that is, as I said, is that you also can lose all the money you put into those enterprises. And so you got to be prepared to go into it and only, again, invest the piece of money that you know may or may not ever come to fruition. If you hit a home run, great. You make a lot of money. What I like to see in venture capital is you make a lot of money on that one and you put it back into a bunch more companies. So you use it as a recyclable asset, not as one that you expect to eat from or retire on. So that helps the risk be a little bit easier to stomach. Along with the venture capital is the angel investor. Those folks actually are kind of in the middle between when you first start your business, your friends and your family, and you put your money in. And that tends to be money that is less than $500,000. I'm sorry, when it's friends and family, it's less than $500,000. The angel investor comes in between $500,000 and $2 million. And the venture capitalist, this is just statistics out of the book, the venture capitalist comes in above $2 million. So, you know, you guys, a lot of you will fall into that friends and family category. So how do you either find capital or how do you invest capital? There are networks. They are national. They put investors together with businesses. There's some resources in the resource list of websites for them. But whichever side that you're on, if you'd like to talk to me about it, I'll be happy to steer you in the right direction. We don't do direct investing in my personal business, but I love to hear if folks want to put a little bit of money that direction, because as I said, you've got the what if factor. What if I am integral in something that actually changes the course of the planet? And money can do that. That's fine. I did that. See, when I have the pictures, I stay in order. When I don't have the pictures, I do not stay in order. Okay, let's see. Large percent of angel investments are lost. I need to point that out, okay? Risk versus reward requires a very high return. So if you are going to win, you're going to win big. And angel investors' profiles go beyond purely monetary. They may have an involvement in an industry that they love. They may be interested in mentoring the next generation. I was a startup and I was successful. I want to help you get your business going, and so therefore I will invest my dollars in you as the next generation. Folks do it because they have environmental concerns. They're looking for medical breakthroughs. A lot of folks will support new businesses that are women and minority owned. Duh. They are some of the most successful new businesses out there. And then, of course, to just broadly make any kind of social change that you can. There are 234,000 active angel investors in 2006. Don't care about that. Shared applications, there's groups. You can get together with the groups and find out who's out there that's looking for capital. You also can go to those same groups if you're looking for capital. And it's actually a kind of nice community. They don't treat you poorly. You've got to have a good business plan, and you've got to have a good business. But it's a really great way to expand beyond what our normal channels are of finding money or investing money. So I have a cartoon that nobody will get because it's too small. Here's a great quote. And this comes from a book written by a bunch of British lawyers. And it's one of those books where they cite precedent and give you, guidance, and it's all very important. And if you're a lawyer, you know what I'm talking about. But this is a great quote because, again, it comes from the lawyers. Integrating environment, social, and governance considerations into an investment analysis so as to more reliably predict financial performance is clearly permissible and is arguably required in all jurisdictions. Whilst normally we find ourselves encouraging our clients to be more cautious, in this case we can instead say, be more imaginative. So what does that translate into? That translates into if you are a fiduciary or you feel that you have some responsibility, you have the responsibility to be more creative and imaginative on how you invest those dollars rather than ratcheting it down and putting it in just traditional investments. So, and again, that's very important to fiduciaries, people who are trustees or on boards of directors. The legal language out there says it's okay to do socially responsible investing. So that's it. I have resources. I'll take questions. Yes?
If you were to buy into some kind of mutual fund that traditionally the management fees are somewhere around the 2% mark, and I'm wondering what they would be for a socially responsible fund, a managed fund.
Well, actually, depending on, and again, there's a big answer to that. Let me shorten it down. The average internal expense ratio for a mutual fund is 1.25. It runs similarly for a socially responsible fund, depending on whether it's domestic or international. International will always run higher, but I think what you can reasonably expect if they are adding on, and a lot of them don't add on, a lot of them do it just as they're part of their mission. They don't add on an extra 10 or 15%, 0.1% of 1% or 0.2 of 1% to your fee. They just do it for that. But I think the most I could imagine you paying is 10 basis points or 0.1 of 1% more. And that's out there. I could actually give you real numbers probably without too much trouble, but don't know it off the top of my head.
But it sounds like it's well within the range of...
Oh, yeah. No, and again, you have to also remember that when you look at expenses, you have to look at returns. And what are you looking at? If you're truly just competing for returns based on a benchmark index, well, then that has to be net after expenses. If you're going to outperform the S&P, it has to be net, not gross. And I'll tell you what, we'll do really good and then we'll take 3% of it. That doesn't work. Okay, well, thank you all for having me. I apologize for being a little bit to the pants, but
you, Susie. That was a great presentation. I understand in addition to Susie's materials, we also have some information from the Missoula Community Market that does have some preferred shares out there. I'm not endorsing them at all. Susie, are you ready to say something? I was going to ask if there was somebody from the market who can say something.
I actually meant to use them as an example of direct investing, and I apologize for that because they're a great example of direct investing. We are in this community trying to create a food co-op. And I think that there's been a lot of hard work done in the last couple of years to get to that goal, and they have at this point actually gone out with a prospectus and are asking for investment dollars into the co-op, and there you are, to further this mission. And again, this is an easy way to put direct money into the community and into something that would expand and be wonderful, a wonderful resource for all of us.
These are preferred stocks, shares that are available. They're non-voting stock shares. There is a prospectus back there. I'm Julie Ellers, the treasurer of the Missoula Community Co-op. You can speak to any, we also have some members of the finance committee here, but we'd be happy to talk to you further about this opportunity of investment right here in the community, in the north side. And if you haven't been over to the market lately, we're open 5 days a week. We have groceries, and please stop by. 1500 Bird Street. So, thank you.
Okay, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We will be tabling at the Homewards building tour, which is June 14th. June 14th is the date for that one. And we will also be actively helping the River City Roots Festival with the greeting project, and we'll have a table there. Our Buy Local campaign will kick off that weekend, and that is August 23rd and 24th. Downtown, they block off parts of Maine, and the music is great, and the food is good, and there's kids' activities, etc. So join the SBC for those. Our next regular meeting will be the third Thursday in September. We're still working on a speaker and a location. We'll let you know. If you want to find out about that and you're not already on our email list, please sign up as you go out for the email. And I'll let the MK